If you watched Wonder Woman 1984 over the holidays like most of us who have been deprived of movies this year, hoping it will satiate your desire for quality content, you may have come out sorely disappointed. Before I go any further, I just want to let you know if you enjoy this content, please consider supporting me by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. I also have a Patreon where you can support me and get some extra behind the scenes content if that's your thing. Okay, back to the video. Now, it's not like Wonder Woman 1984 had a lot of expectations to live up to. Yes, the original was pretty good and decently well put together, but by no means did it set expectations so high that a sequel could never top it. Wonder Woman 1984 just wasn't very well made at all, in my opinion. It fails in creating a compelling conflict, the plot points felt awkward, there was no urgency or really anything that made us care about the story or characters for at least half of the movie.
Shoot pants?
Yeah.
Does everybody parachute?
And Wonder Woman herself had barely any screen time for the first third of the film because most of it was used to set up villains. But I will say this about the movie. It generally tries to convey good messages about letting go of selfishness and doing what's best for humanity, as well as acting as a symbol for fighting off toxic masculinity. As far as plot goes, it does attempt to subvert the typical monkey's paw, three wishes premise a little bit more creatively as well. The villain in Wonder Woman 1984 is the one who actually gains what the wisher gives up. DC fans may also enjoy the nods to Wonder Woman's comic book character with the incorporation of the invisible jet and the fact that she actually learns how to fly, but these moments had so little setup that fans unfamiliar with her character may have been thrown off by how quickly her powers escalated. Meanwhile, the addition of her arch nemesis Cheetah started giving me horror flashbacks to cats. Okay, so enough of my hot takes for the film. I wanted to see what other people were thinking. So shortly after seeing the movie, I scoured the internet for other opinions, and I came across a Forbes article on Reddit titled The Warped Morality of Wonder Woman 1984, written by Forbes senior contributor Dani de Placido, or Placido, apologies if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, who has written a lot about movies and television for the business magazine. He shares in the majority sentiment that the film is not very good, but goes further in evaluating Wonder Woman's moral standards as a superhero figure, and then extrapolating and applying that same evaluation on other superhero movies, claiming that the entire genre has a cracked moral compass. So I thought this was an interesting statement, because it kind of hinges on the assumption that stories are defined by their genre, as opposed to the genre being a byproduct of the story being told. It's sort of implied that if you have seen a superhero movie, you'll find these same flaws in every one of them, which I don't believe is necessarily true. Let's dive a little deeper into the article to see what he meant, but also further evaluate his arguments, because I think some of his lines of reasoning can be a little unfair. I've also linked the article in the description box below, so if you want to go ahead and read that before we continue this video, go ahead. It only takes a few minutes. And I don't think Dani will ever come across this video or ever watch this video, but if you do, I also welcome your thoughts on my thoughts. Placido first targets the film's moral messages by evaluating Diana's character, starting off bluntly with a rhetorical question. Isn't Wonder Woman supposed to be a good person? He goes on to cite a couple instances in the movie where her actions can be considered morally questionable. But the film does not appear to question the morality of her actions just because she is the titular hero of the film. Placido's first reservation is about the creative choice to bring her dead lover Steve back to life in the body of another man. Naturally, Diana is surprised to see him return, but she doesn't seem concerned with the fate of the stranger, not even a little bit. She simply doesn't care. In fact, she has sex with Steve using this man's body like a silicone sex doll. He compares Diana and Steve to sociopaths because they are using this man without giving him any say in the matter, but the film brushes their odd behavior off, like in the last moments of the film when Diana has her signature wholesome smile spread across her face, seemingly untroubled by the fact that she just finished using this man's flesh as a vessel for her own desires. Placido also points out many of her other morally questionable shortcomings that the film seemingly just covers up. Because Diana's careless acts of destruction never seem to result in civilian casualties or even death to her enemies, seemingly because she doesn't intend to, but really because of sheer luck. In summary, it seems as though Placido is saying that Wonder Woman 1984 somehow teaches us that good people are allowed to do bad things. Ergo, the film gives us this warped sense of morality. However, I think this argument kind of misses the point of Diana's character. Her decisions in the film are actually portrayed as harmful. Her wanting to keep Steve is at the crux of the film's plot. She is flawed for not wanting to move on from him. Albeit, yes, it's a little unrealistic that 70 years has gone by and perhaps it reveals something about her emotional maturity, but the film does not say that's a good thing either. And I think the article kind of misses the point that Wonder Woman is a flawed character, and really any superhero should be a flawed character. Because it would be boring and probably irrelevant storytelling to have someone who is 100% righteous as your main protagonist. It makes for bad moral lessons because it's unrealistic. Very few stories succeed with characters who don't change or learn. So Wonder Woman is flawed. She is supposed to be a good person, but she can make bad decisions, and she may not necessarily evaluate all the implications of that decision, such as what to do with this human meat puppet, sure. There is a selfishness to her character that the filmmakers did not cover up or reward. I think this creative decision actually helps to ground Wonder Woman to be someone who is not just larger than life, but someone who is just a tad more relatable. She has this single desire that she cannot see past. The wish literally made her only see Steve, and I think that's more human than anything. It's only when she makes that tough but good decision to let Steve go that the things start turning around for her and the world. The film was written so that she was only able to save the day if she gave him up. Another example that Placido uses is Barbara's revenge scene against the man who attempts to sexually assault her twice. Now, I do have a slight issue with how the film appears to portray its men, in that the majority of the time they are just dumbed down as stereotypical representations of people who only think of women as objects. Jake is the coworker that very purposely ignores Barbara's existence until he thinks she's hot. Barbara gets catcalled more times than we can count.
Hey babe, where you going?
Is it realistic? I'm not really in a position to say. I guess it could also be the wish that made them all behave like this, but regardless, I'll look past it because I'm sure examples of the opposite are way more prevalent in media. Anyways, Placido's point of contention is about how Barbara's revenge scene is depicted as menacing, in contrast to any of the acts of violence that Diana commits. He states, "Is wanting revenge against a man who tried to rape you twice meant to be a sign of an unpleasant personality? Perhaps the difference stems from Barbara enjoying her act of violence, or at least appearing to." He then goes on to make a comparison to when Batman gleefully beats up teenagers for possessing weed, saying if Barbara is evil for enjoying her revenge, what does that say about Batman? So I had to do a tiny bit of researching for this one. Fortunately, the first article that showed up was a very colorful review and summary of the supposed Batman comic. And as much beating up as he does in that story, I don't think he ever gleefully beats up a teenager. He does a lot of beating up largely on supervillains and drug dealers, but that's besides the point. To what Placido is saying, I do wonder if there would be an equally notable ethical dilemma if Barbara's revenge were glorified and celebrated in the film instead. I think it's more that the premise of revenge is often not seen as noble or justified. Does this man deserve to be punished? Yes, but how and by whom? I think no matter which way you spin it, there are very difficult ethical issues at play here. I don't think that if the filmmakers had celebrated Barbara for beating this guy to death, that it would be much of a moral victory either. Finally, in Placido's view, the largest transgression in Wonder Woman 1984 and all superhero films is that superheroes tend to maintain the status quo, however unjust, and villains who desire change to be depicted as unhinged radicals. He notes that Barbara's biggest sin is wishing for a better life for herself. Because she does that, she also gradually loses her humanity in the process. Placido goes on to mention other superhero films like Black Panther and Spider-Man Homecoming, stating, even if villains have a sympathetic grievance or a strong point, Black Panther's Killmonger, Spider-Man Homecoming's Vulture, they're always written to be violent, unhinged psychopaths because they have to be. I definitely do see Placido's grievance that superheroes, are generally not considered agents of change. I look back at a lot of superhero films and I think the statement kind of fits. However, I think it's unfair to apply this observation on an entire genre. Like I said before, I think Placido's argument and observation largely relies on the assumption that stories are defined by their genre as opposed to the genre being a byproduct of the story. I, for one, stand for the latter. I don't think you can say that all superhero movies have this issue of heroes maintaining the status quo. You can look at a single genre and there are an abundance of different stories that do not bear any similarity with each other. Animation, for instance, is a genre flooded with different stories. How can something like SpongeBob be compared to, say, Japanese anime? Superhero movies can be like that as well. I would say a film like The Avengers is completely different from a film like Logan. As a matter of fact, Logan is a great example of a superhero movie that's not about stopping change, but about adapting to change. And the fact that Placido cites Black Panther as an example of a sympathetic villain with a hero opposed to change is really bizarre, because at the end of that movie, T'Challa embraces Killmonger's view, opening up Wakanda to the world and establishing an outreach center in America. Killmonger wasn't depicted as a radicalist just because he wanted change. He was depicted as a radicalist because of the manner in how he wanted change. Simply, I don't think it can be said that all superhero movies are flawed for the exact same reasons, as Placido implies. Overall, I do agree with his sentiment that Wonder Woman 1984 is a pretty bad film. I would definitely not watch it again, but it's not bad for the reasons he states. Anyways, have you gotten a chance to see Wonder Woman 1984 yet? If so, let me know your thoughts. If not, well, you know mine. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you all had a fantastic holiday season. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content. As mentioned, I also have a Patreon with additional content if you want to see more. Thank you to my patrons, especially my current top tier patron, Jared, for sticking it out with me. I know I haven't been consistent with my content, but I hope 2021 goes a lot better for content creation and for the entire world. Stay safe, everyone. Cheers.